Why are some people against renewable energy? Sometimes RE is sold as a magic pill, and people are rightly skeptical of feckless businessmen selling what they can't deliver on. For some people, investing in RE means that their current job or the town that depends on those jobs will suffer, and they don't want to eat one for the greater good. Some people are convinced to be opposed by the media they consume and trust for no better reason than it's a prepackaged idea. Some people aren't so much against renewable energy as they are skeptical about our plans to implement it, and believe that botching the public's expectations will set our bigger picture goals back by years or decades. Some of the arguments against renewable energy are what it's going to take to start them and then keep them running. For example, it's my understanding that all the batteries in the EV cars are not recyclable, that they are just going to fill dumps until somebody can figure out how to reuse them, and the cost to replace them is not worth buying the vehicle. I have heard the argument that a lot of renewable energy devices require the mining and processing of things that we don't have a lot of, that a lot of their components are not recyclable and/or will be toxic to the environment once they are no longer in use. Not to mention the amount of land that these devices will have to take over to even remotely be a viable solution. So how many imminent domain land heists are going to happen? What about all of the wires or pipes or whatever they are thinking of using to get that energy from its source to the homes and towns and businesses that are going to require that energy? There just isn't enough data and hard physical evidence to prove that some or all of the renewable energy options are viable. These are just the arguments that I have heard. Almost no one is against renewable energy. However, is it the best use of time and resources we have? That is really the question you should always ask when looking at government policy. While I certainly like renewable energy, I personally have much rather seen spending on transit or other infrastructure than the billions spent on renewable energy and home solar subsidies. For context, I'm in Ontario, Canada. It's always easy to say, well, we should do both. But they never do. Everything has a budget and everything is limited. It's also not just money. Construction and engineering and labor people are also limited. Now, are there people whose self-interest might convince them to be less than supportive of renewable energy? Of course. Anyone whose job depends on, say, oil gas, or who investments depends on oil gas. Others might just be less than supportive as their enemies are for it. It's just a culture war thing. There's no logical reason to oppose them. It's change. People don't like change. We should have solar panels on every roof, because it is inefficient compared to nuclear. I had a long back and forth discussion with a New Mexico rancher regarding renewables, etc. He had gas and oil wells on his land and was worried adoption of renewables would shut him down. I finally won, or at least got him to back down a bit, when I convinced him that all the stuff we make from oil is too important to just be burning it now. My ex-FIL was a climate change denier and anti-electric vehicles. When I asked if he cared that the planet his grandchildren inherit may be beyond repair, and he said he didn't care as he had already made his money. It's because it's been mostly Democrats pushing it since Gore. So Fox News and the like argue with them, and their viewers get that side's argument. The disappearance of jobs. Coal mining jobs are down from 300,000 to 50,000 over the last 50 years. Oil and gas jobs have been cut in half since the 80s. Half the people are of below average intelligence. 1. Some people don't like change or feel threatened by it. 2. Oil and gas are still economically important. A lot of people stand to lose jobs to renewable energy. 2. Oil company propaganda has been very effective in convincing people renewable energy is not desirable. They are scared of change. Liberals are responsible IMO. They stupidly campaigned against nuclear power and basically succeeded in killing its growth. We could have far more online clean nuclear right now if dim-witted liberals hadn't fought it tooth and nail from the 60s, 80s. Currently there's no real alternative to oil is the main reason. If even like 5 bought electric vehicles, for example, we'd need a lot more nuclear plants and the grid would crumble. I think in time maybe some other tech will be workable, but not yet. And putting solar farms on your property is expensive, as would a wind turbine. Not even possible. What clean sources of power do you have on your property that allows you to unplug from the grid and be off oil? Keep in mind plastic is made from oil. Our use of oil is growing each year, not shrinking. Because renewable energy is still pretty unreliable and expensive, and is only getting the traction it has due to large government subsidies. You can tell this because the countries that really need power, in the third world, where reliable, cheap energy is a matter of life and death, are still overwhelmingly using fossil fuels. I have an example from my own country, Norway, where there is a lot of resistance against gigantic wind farms that are being planned or already up and running. Most common arguments: wind farms can disrupt local ecosystems, including killing tons of birds. They are often built in the mountains and require blasting and flattening a big area, years of construction, new roads being built, all of this in vulnerable wilderness areas with endangered species, some of them national park adjacent. In addition to a lot of pollution, the construction of these wind farms can significantly alter pristine landscapes, which many Norwegians value highly. They are enormous and dominate the landscape, a landscape important for our identity. In northern Norway, many wind farms are planned or constructed in areas traditionally used for Sami reindeer herding. This disrupts grazing routes and threatens the livelihood of the indigenous Sami people. Many wind projects are led by foreign or private companies, with profits flowing out of the country. They exploit our natural resources, destroy nature, and take it all for themselves. I'd like to see a study describing at what point in the lifespan the windmills become energy net positive. Why are people against vegans or vegetarians? Why are people against climate change evidence? Because accepting something like this means they'd have to change their lives and they don't want to. That's it. Because the politicians they worship and the propaganda news sources they watch all tell them it's a scam.